सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनो भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। सुखं नित्यं स्वप्रकाशं व्यापकं नाम रूपयोः अधिष्ठानं बुद्ध्यबोध्यं बुद्धिर्दृग्यत्तु निर्मलम् अपारं सर्ववेदान्तवेद्यं प्रत्यक्परं महः तदेवाहं न मत्तोऽन्यदिति मे निश्चिता मतिः।
So we are seeing the description of the 8-staged Viveka, which when a person gets, he is called a Jignasu. So the first stage was that all the Vaishekam Sukham is Dukkham, or at least Dukkha Misritam. Second stage was that until there is Sharira Sambandha, there is Dukkham. Third stage was until there is Punya Papa, there is Sharira Sambandha. Fourth stage was that until there is Ragadvesha, until that time there is Punya Papa. Fifth stage was until there is Ishta Nishta Sadhanata Buddhi, until that time there is Ragadvesha. And yesterday we started seeing the sixth stage, where the Granthakara says Ishta Nishta Sadhanata Buddhi api Vedadhi Nibandhana iti Vivekaha tataha jayate. Tataha means after the Viveka is born, that without the destruction of Ishta Nishta Sadhanata Buddhi, Ragadvesha will not be removed. After that, one more type of discriminative understanding is born. And what is that? It is in the form that even the idea of something being the means for something desirable or the means for something being indesirable is undesirable.
That is English. Discipline, indiscipline, also like desirability.
So that kind of idea of something being the means for desirable and undesirable is based upon Bheda Buddhi, the idea of division. And now, in the next part of this section, the Granthakara explains how that is the case. Means how Ishta Nishta Sadhanata Buddhi is Bhedadhi Nibandhana. So it is said, Yada Swaswarupad Anyat Iva Dvitiyam Vastu Avabudhyate Tada Tatra Ishta Sadhanata Buddhi va Anishta Sadhanata Buddhi va Jayeta. So it is said, when something means when something is as though seen as second, means different from one's own true nature, means when something is understood as though different from oneself, tada, then tatra, with regard to that particular entity which is seen as different, either the idea of that thing being the means for desirable or the idea of that thing being the means for undesirable would be born. And now in the next part, the Granthakara explains this particular idea which is told in this sentence. And first the Granthakara shows that that particular idea of Ishta Sadhanata and Anishta Sadhanata would not be born with regard to one's own true nature. So that is said, स्वस्वरूपमात्रे तु कस्यचिदपि इष्टसाधनता बुद्धिः वा अनिष्टसाधनता बुद्धिः वा न jayate. Whereas with regard to just one's own true nature, for anyone or even for anyone, the idea of one's own true nature being the means for something desirable or being the means for something indesirable is not born. And for this, from the next part, building the background, the Granthakara gives the hetu that why, with regard to one's own self, this idea is not born. So first he builds the background. It is said, Sukha sadhanam is also called anukulam, favorable, and ishta sadhanam, the means for something desirable. And dukkha sadhanam is also called pratikulam, unfavorable, and anishta sadhanam, the means for undesirable. And then the hetu is given. Swaswarupam tu na sukhasya va dukkhasya va sadhanam bhavati. But one's own true nature is not or does not become the means for happiness or sadness. Why? Tasya sukha swarupattvena sukha sadhanatva sambhavat. Tasya swaswarupasya, because that one's own true nature being of the nature of happiness is, yes, for one's own true nature being of the nature of happiness, it is impossible to become the means for happiness. So what the Granthakara is saying, that one's own true nature is of the nature of happiness, means it is happiness, and happiness cannot be the means for happiness. Something other than happiness has to be the means for happiness. Therefore, with regard to one's own true nature, the idea of ishta sadhanata is not born. Samsi, here can we say that because of the same reason the idea of anishta sadhanata is also not born, because one's own true nature is sukha rupa?
Since it is Sukha Swarupa, happiness cannot become the means for unhappiness.
Yes. So, and Swaswarupam being Sukha Swarupa cannot become the means for happiness. Therefore, with regard to one's own true nature, the idea of Anishta Sadhanata is also not born. Ataha, therefore, means since with regard to oneself, Ishta Nishta Sadhanata Buddhi is not born. Therefore, Swaswarupatiriktvatvena avagate vastuni आनुकूल्य प्रातिकूल्य बुद्धि यथा संभवम jayate. Therefore, with regard to the entity which is understood as different from one's own true nature, with regard to that entity alone, the idea of it being favorable or it being unfavorable, and here anukulya and pratikulya means ishta sadhanata and anishta sadhanata. So that idea would be born respectively. Means some things will be seen as anukulya.
Sadhana.
Yes, anukulya sadhana means ishta sadhana, and something will be some other things will be seen as anishta sadhana. And now in the next sentence the Granthakara shows that what is the cause for this anukulya pratikulya buddhi. So it is said, एवं च अखंडानंदाद्वितीया संगचिद्रूप स्वस्वरूपादतिरिक्त वस्तु संकल्पनम एव आनुकूल्य प्रातिकूल्य बुद्धि हेतुः. एवं च, and thus means since the anukulya pratikulya buddhi is
Pratikulya.
Yes. So the anukulya pratikulya buddhi is born with regard to something other than oneself. Thus, the cause for the idea of something being favorable or something being unfavorable is the idea of something being different from one's own true nature alone. And for for that one's own true nature, certain adjectives are given. One's own true nature, which is akhanda, homogeneous, ananda, of the nature of happiness, advitiya, non-dual, asanga, being free from relationship at all times, and chidrupa, of the nature of consciousness. So it means that the cause for this idea of something being ishta sadhana or something being anishta sadhana is the idea of division, the division that this thing is separate from me. And that particular idea now the Granthakara shows in the next sentence. Idrak bheda buddhi nivrittim antara anukulya pratikulya buddhi na nivartete.
It's not the same
Yes,
idea.
yes.
He is giving the conclusion.
Yes.
The cause is this,
Yes.
that Swarupa Atirikta Vastu Sankalpanam, considering something to be different from its true nature, is the basis for considering the thing to be the means for happiness or unhappiness.
Yes.
And therefore,
so what is the final conclusion that is shown by the Granthakara? That idrak bheda buddhi nivrittim antara, without the negation of this type of idea of division. And what is this type? This type means something is different from me. Without the negation of such division of idea, the idea of something being favorable or something being unfavorable would not be negated. So thus we reached the sixth stage of Viveka, where it is shown that without the negation of this Bheda Buddhi, there will be no negation of Ishta Nishta Sadhanata Buddhi. And now in the seventh stage, the Granthakara shows what is the cause for this Bheda Buddhi. It is said, Idrik Bheda Buddhi Swaswarupa Jnanat Jayate iti Vivekaha Tataha Bhavati. So Tataha means after the previous conclusion, after the previous discriminative understanding is born, then another understanding is born. And what is that? Then the idea of division of this type, it is something is different from me, is born based on the ajnanam, the ignorance of one's own true nature. And now this particular idea the Granthakara explains with the help of certain Shruti. So it is said, Yatra hi dvaitam iva bhavati tad itaraha itaram jikrati. So in this Shruti Vakyam it is said, Yatra means in the state of the effect of avidya or avidya karya, means
in the state of effect of avidya and avidya karya, we are saying no? The state
of when
ignorance or the cause of the effect of ignorance. If you are translating, then okay. But otherwise, both mean the same, no?
It means by effect, what I want to highlight, means I did not highlight it properly. What I want to highlight is when it is active, when avidya is active or avidya karyam, that is adhyasa, is active.
Please repeat the sentence. I will revisit.
In the state, I can put it like this: in the state when avidya or its karyam is active, effective, means that way. But it's.
And you said effect or effective?
First I said effects, so that can create that.
Because effect and karya are same. No?
Yes.
Unless you can say that I was just translating karya effect. So that's okay. Okay. Now please tell me what you have.
So in the state when this avidya is active or avidya karyam is active, means adhyasa is active.
Really speaking, when avidya karya is active only. Sometimes avidya karya may not be active, but avidya will be active. When?
So at that time, Dvaitam iva bhavati. There is as though duality. Means there is not really duality, but duality is as though seen. Tad means tatra at that time. Itaraha itaram jigrati. One being different from the other experiences the smell of something different. Then in the next Shruti, Yatra va anyat iva syat tatra anyaha anyat pashyeta. Yatra
Pashyeta is it?
means pashyet. Yatra means avidya dashayam. In the state of ignorance, there would be something else, as though means really it is not there, but as though something else would be there.
No, something else. As though there is something else. Okay.
Yes.
We have to highlight something else part more.
Yes.
In avidya dasa, there is as though something else.
Yes. So in avidya dasha, as though something else is there. Tatra means in that dasha at that time, anyaha anyat pashyet. One being different from the others would see other. And the third Shruti is Yadeva Jagrat Bhayam Pashyati Tadatra Vidyaya Manyate. Yadeva Bhayam Pashyati means Bhayam here means Bhaya Karanam. Means whichever source of fear one sees, such as Vyagra, etc., when in the Jagrat Avastha, that alone, Atra, in the Swapana Avastha, one will consider as the Bhaya Karanam. How? Avidyaya, because of ignorance. So by all these three Shruti, it is shown that because of avidya, there is as though duality. And further also it is shown that because of that as though duality, there is transaction with regard to that duality. And that idea now the Granthakara says, Ityadi Anantasrutayah Swaswarupa Jnana Dashayam Eva Sakala Dvaita Prapancha Vyavaharaha Iti Bodhayanti. So, innumerable Shruti reveal this idea. What is the idea? That the transaction related to the entire dualistic world is in the state of ajnanam, ignorance of one's true nature alone, and not in this. Yes, this much is. And now, in the next sentence, the Granthakara gives the conclusion with regard to the Viveka from the Viveka number 2 to Viveka number 7. And what is the conclusion? The conclusion is that finally the Dukkham is because of avidya. So it is said, Evam, in this manner. Is in what manner? That the Dukkham is because of Punya Papa. Punya Papa is because of this.
Dukkham is because not immediately Punya Papa.
Yes. Dukkham, Dukkham is because of Sharira Sambandha. Sharira Sambandha is because of Punya Papa. Punya Papa is there because of Raga Dvesha. Raga Dvesha because of Ishta, Nishtha, Sadhanata, Buddhi. And that Buddhi is there because of Bheda Buddhi. And Bheda Buddhi is there because of Avidya, Swaswarupa Jnanam. Therefore, Ashesha Dukkha Nidanam Swaswarupa Jnanam iti Siddham. Therefore, it is established. What is established? That the cause for all the dukkha, means the dukkha without any reminder, is Swaswarupa Jnanam, is the ignorance of one's true nature alone.
In the seventh thing, one point we had understood, and that is how ignorance causes the Veda Buddhi.
Yes.
No?
Yes.
Yes.
So, Because of ignorance, there is this sense of limitation.
How?
Yes. So because of ignorance, there is identification with the body-mind sense complex, and thereby there is sense of limitation.
What is the connection between the two? Identification with the body and sense of limitation.
Yes. If I am identified with one body, then I am not the other things except this body, and the body is limited. Therefore, I will conclude that I am limited. Thus, because of this um, identification, there is sense of limitation.
Sense of individuality. We can highlight here that part.
So there is sense of individuality, and thereby there is duality, means subject and object duality. I am this body mind sense complex, and everything else is different from me, and thereby there is transaction in that dualistic world.
Alright. So we have come long way, from seeing that every Vaishekam Sukham, the happiness related to the objects, is Dukkham, or at least Dukkham Mishritam. See, to see Dukkham is little difficult. Swamiji, Sukh hai to Sukh hi hai, usko Dukh kyun bolte ho? So, therefore, I thoda discount, we'll give some discount. And they said, Dukkham Mishrita, Dukh Mishrita. That much they cannot deny. Afterwards, we'll see that it is a potential Dukkham. But we say Dukkha Mishritam, means you cannot avoid pain, suffering, which is related to even Vaishekam Sukham. Dukkham to Dukkham eva. Pain is pain. उसमें कुछ हमको वो pain भी सुख से एग्जाम को कहने की जरूरत नहीं. We don't have to say that. But pain is pain, and what you are looking upon the situation as the happiness, that also is fraught with pain. And this pain cannot be avoided as long as Sharira Sambandha is there. Sharira Sambandha cannot be avoided as long as Punya Papa account is there. Punya Papa account cannot be avoided as long as the Raga Dveshas are there. Because likes and dislikes are there, you will do action, Punya Papa will happen. And Raga Dvesha cannot be avoided until Shobhana Dhyasa means looking upon something as the means for happiness or unhappiness. That is called Ishta Sadhanata, Anishta Sadhanata Buddhi is there. Raga Dvesha will be there. And this Ishta Anishta Sadhanata Buddhi cannot be avoided until Bheda Buddhi is there. As long as Bheda Buddhi, I am different, this world is different, Bheda Buddhi is there, then Ishta Anishta Sadhanata will be there. Because I will be seeing myself to be limited. And I don't find myself to be happy. So I will be superimposing happiness. Therefore, Ishta Sadhanata, Anishta Sadhanata Buddhi will be there. As long as Veda Buddhi is there. And Veda Buddhi is there as long as Ajnana is there. Because I do not know what really I am. At the same time, I am self-evident. This is a very funny situation. Self is self-evident, but self is not completely known. If self also was like something hidden in the nest of a bird on Himalayas, it will not cause any problem to me. I will not misconclude about that object. In that one small pebble is there but shining, so I conclude as a diamond. That type of thing will not happen. Why? Because that is hidden from me. So self is evident, means known but not completely known. Therefore, there is a basis for mistake. And that mistake is considering the non-self to be the self. And since I am considering this body-mind sense complex to be the self, therefore, there's sense of individuality, and therefore Veda Buddhi is there. So as long as the Ajnanam is there, Veda Buddhi is bound to be there. And therefore, final conclusion we came that the cause for dukkha by all this parampara is Swaswarupa Dhanam. It is Siddham. I do not know myself completely and therefore there is a dukkha. This is a very good point for contemplation, that when I appreciate myself to be really what I am, is there any dukkha? Somebody says, Swamiji, I know I am Brahman, but my wife doesn't accept that I am Brahman. So he's generally wife will not accept. They say the spouse will have the last signature of any certificate given to the spouse. She will be the last one to sign. This fellow has changed. Whole world will accept. She will accept last. Finally, because she will be seeing. Many times he changed and again came back to that original. Therefore, she will take time to certify that whether it is sustainable change is there or not. So she will take time. Therefore, many people have this problem really. Swamiji, I am changed, but my spouse doesn't accept you. But why do you expect him to accept you? Accept the change? Anyway, that's a part. So when somebody says that I am Brahman, but my wife or my husband or my child doesn't accept, that person does not see the discrepancy in the thinking. Why? See, one side he says, I am Brahman. What is that Brahman? Advaitam Brahma. Advaitam Brahman is non-dual Brahman. In non-dual Brahman, how did wife enter? Husband enter. Wife has no entry there. Husband has no entry. Child has no entry. Nobody has entry. You alone are there. So person doesn't see this discrepancy. He is mixing up two levels. Brahma Drishtya, there is no Pati, Patni, etc. Or other way also you can see. Brahma Drishtya, Ahameva Sarva. So wife who is not accepting and the husband who is not accepted, both of them are Ahameva. So where is the problem? If you appreciate the shouting one and shouted one, both are same, there is no problem. When you identified with the shouted one and see the shouting one to be different from you, there is a problem. But when you say that, oh, in dream, see that fellow was shouting at me. But that me also was me and that shouting fellow also was me. Where is the problem? You don't go and fight in the waking state. Oh, in dream you are shouting at me. Come se come dream mein to shant raho. In dream at least you be quiet. No, we don't go and fight. Fortunately, if we are sane, some people may do that also. And they want some reason to fight. So they do that. But generally we don't do. So when I understand that screaming, shouting one and shouted one, both are me, there is no problem. See, I was thinking other day that sometime, that in the ashram that or any place, organization, this managerial system doesn't work. Manager is not there, assistant manager is not there, supervisor not there, all not there. Then you say, oh, what is this? But we think it is such a, uncomfortable situation. But we see from the worker standpoint, how today nobody is there. Really, I was thinking that we think from one side, no? Then we say, oh, this is not good, this is what is this and all. But we see from that standpoint, we identify with them, how today we can sit aram se. So that also is me. One would like to sit visually, that also is me. So then there is, really speaking, when the samashti tadatya is there, there is no dukkha. Bhashakara in Prajapatya, this phalam, he says this. He says when you identify with one particular point or one particular entity, there is a dukkha. But you identify with all, then no. So we are watching the match and whichever team played well won. So you celebrate that also. Then you don't have problem. So I had heard this story that God was watching the match, and when this A team was winning, Then also God was clapping. And B team was winning, that also he was clapping. For both he was clapping. And he said, which team you belong to? He said, both are my team. How nice it is. Nobody can make you unhappy. So that we can see that Brahma Drishtya Dukkham Nasti. Really speaking, where is Dukkha? The very basis for Dukkha is not there. And therefore, Swaswarupa Gnanam Ashesha Dukkha Nidanam. That's a very useful thing to contemplate. That is why in the 13th chapter, Tattva Gnanartha Darshana, keep seeing the glory of self-knowledge. That when this vision is there, where is the problem? Problem is there when we are missing the vision. When vision is there, in that vision there is no problem. At least that part we should see, that in this vision there is no problem. Whether I have owned up this vision or not, but at least we appreciate cognitively that in this vision, problem is not there. That much conviction should come first. That yes, I can see that when I am having this vision, from that standpoint of that vision, there cannot be any problem. That itself is a very big achievement, cognitive big achievement, and very useful for the pursuit of knowledge, very useful for the motivation for the pursuit of knowledge. Okay. Now the last stage of Viveka. Tataha Swaswarupa Gnanam Swaswarupa Gnanena eva nivartate na anyena Dayoho Tamah Prakasha Vat Paraspara Viroditvat iti Vivekaha Utpadyate. So after the seventh step, you should not stop. What? All problems are because of ignorance. And I have ignorance. Therefore, I will always have problems. That is a Maha conclusion he had. See, thinking about only problems and even the cause for the problem is not a solution. Yes, you have started walking in the direction of solution, but that itself is not solution. It is something like, a person is hospitalized, and in hospital so many tests are done. Person feels very good about it. See, my treatment started. Really speaking, treatment not started. But he feels that so many tests are done. Psychologically help, but really speaking, treatment is quite different from diagnosis. Diagnosis is a step in the direction of treatment, but itself is not treatment. By seeing the report, you don't become alright. Unless you have psychological problem, you don't become alright. So by simply saying that Ajnanam alone is the cause, problem is not solved. And therefore next step is important. Tataha, thereafter means after having the seventh stage of Viveka or seventh stage of Viveka, there is a difference, no?
Yes.
Yes. Different or not different?
Did you hear again?
Huh? Is there a difference?
Yes.
What is the difference?
The first one is seventh stage, means only the seventh stage is. Other is
The
seven.
difference between first and one, there is a difference, no? Not that difference. Alright. So after having seventh or seven stages of Viveka, a little bit, tickling to the brain. Yeah. Tataha means thereafter. After having seven stages of Viveka, Swaswarupa Gnanam, the ignorance of one's true nature, Swaswarupa Gnanena eva nivartate. The ignorance of one's true nature is removed by the knowledge of one's true nature. Na anyena, not by anything else. And na anyena means it has got two ideas. Means jnana bhinna sadhanena na nivartate. Ignorance is not removed by anything other than knowledge. That is one. And further, ignorance of my true nature will not be removed by any other knowledge also. Okay? So ignorance of my true nature is removed by knowledge alone, and that too the knowledge of my true nature. Na anyena, not by anything else. Why? Tayoho tamah prakashavat paraspara viroditvat. Because tayoho means swaswarupa jnana, jnana yoga. Between the knowledge of one's true nature and the ignorance of true nature, there is viroditvam. Yes. Some loose connection. Or you can put this. Okay. Now okay? Seems to be. Okay. So why Swaswarupa Jnanam will be removed by Swaswarupa Jnanam? Because both of them are Paraspara Virodhi, are opposite to each other. Like what? Tamaha Prakasha, like darkness and light. And the principle is that a given thing is removed by its opposite. And therefore Swaswarupa Jnanam is removed by Swaswarupa Jnanam, knowledge. By knowledge, ignorance is removed because knowledge and ignorance are opposite to each other, like light and darkness. Like darkness can be removed by light. Generally we say like this. Don't say light is removed by darkness. Generally we don't say that. That also, logically it should be there, but we are talking about ajnanam. So therefore, tamaha prakashena nivartate. Is it clear? Praspara virodhitvat iti. In this manner, vivekaha utpadyate. The discriminative understanding is born. So what is the understanding? In laughter we should not meet us. Ignorance of my true nature is removed by the knowledge of my true nature, because both of them are opposite to each other, like light and darkness. This type of understanding is born to Viveki, to a person who is in the process of transformation from Vishayi to Jignasu. Now he is very close to it, he is becoming that. Utpadyate. And now this is like a Sangraha Vakyam. This is a proposition, propositional statement, Pratigna Vakyam. Now he explains, Yad Vishayakam Agdanam Bhavati, Tadagdanam Tad Vishayaka Aparuksha Jnanena Eva Nivartate. Why Swaswarupa Jnanam is Swaswarupa Jnanena Eva Nivartate? That is explained. We say, Yad Vishayakam Agdanam Bhavati. Of whatever object ignorance is, means with regard to whatever subject matter ignorance is, tad agdanam, that ignorance, tad vishayaka aparoksha jnanena eva nivartate. That ignorance is removed by the direct knowledge of that subject matter only. A given ignorance related to a particular object is removed by the knowledge of that object. Alright. He gives the example. It's very easy to understand. Yatha rajva jnanam rajju sakshatkareneva nivartate tadvat. Just as the ignorance of rope is removed by the direct perception of the rope. Ignorance of rope is removed by direct perception of the rope. Tadvat, similarly. Here, the Granthakara is taking it for granted that the subject matter is Pratyaksha or Aparoksha. Otherwise, certain objects are of this Paroksha. So, Paroksha Vishayaka Agdanam, Paroksha Vishayaka Jnanena Nivartate. The knowledge of indirect object is removed by indirect knowledge of the object. Is it clear? Like the knowledge or the ignorance of this God particle is removed by what? The knowledge of God particle. That knowledge is what? Direct or indirect? Indirect. Nobody has seen God particle. We call boson particle also. That boson, I think, is a God particle is a common man's language. Actually, I think it's a boson particle. So, object is paroksha, then paroksha dhanana. But his object is aparoksha or pratyaksha, then we need to have aparoksha dhanana. See, you understand the situation that there is a appearance of snake on the road, and somebody gives you a theory. What? That there cannot be a snake. There is all probability, 99.99% probability is that it is rope only. Still you will not go near. Like a sad. So if you give just theoretical knowledge, see there is no possibility of a snake coming, his room is packed, and if there is a history of this place that 100 last years, snake has never come, and therefore snake cannot be there. Do you think snake can be there? Then this person will say, I don't think, but you go and try. Isn't it? Therefore, my ajnanam of the pratyaksha vishaya will not be completely removed by parokshita. Therefore, this is one of the siddhanta of Vedanta, that aparoksha samsaritva brahma will not go by paroksha brahmadana. Therefore, if you are looking upon this brahmadhanam as a theory and academic exercise, your samsaritva brahma will not go. Means you think, see, in Vedanta, this Atma is looked upon as Brahman, which is free from problems. You will say that. But I am free from samsara. I don't need anything to be happy. Nothing can make me unhappy. That type of conviction, that type of intimate appreciation will not come. Which is a Brahmadana phalam. That will not happen. So that's why I need to see very intimately that yes, I am Brahman. As intimately I am seeing I am this body, I am man, woman, etc. That is why it is said sakshatkara. The significance of sakshatkara word I was telling. So rajju sakshatkaraneva nivartate tadvatu. Tasmat, therefore means what? Since yet the ignorance of a given subject matter is removed by the knowledge of that subject matter, therefore swaswarupa paroksha jnanam eva akhilanartha nidana swarupa dana nivritti dvara nishreyasatmaka nikhila dukkha nivritti hetuhu bhavati. This is a little bigger conclusion. Tasmat is not small tasmat, big tasmat. Why we have to include the discussion we had in the 7 stages. And the 7 stages conclusion also is to be included. Tasmat means by the knowledge of a given thing alone, the ignorance of that thing will go. And therefore, the knowledge of Swaswarupa alone will remove the Swaswarupa Ajnanam. And Swaswarupa Ajnanam is the cause for all dukkha. Therefore, that much is therefore. Is it clear? Now we'll understand. Tasma. Therefore, Swaswarupa Paroksha Jnanam eva. Direct knowledge of one's true nature alone is nikhila dukkha nivritti hetu bhavati. That is the connection. The knowledge, direct knowledge of one's true nature alone is the means for the removal of all dukkhas, which is nishreyasatmaka, which is in the form of moksha. Direct knowledge of my true nature is the means for the removal of all dukkha, which is in the form of freedom. Nishrayasa means freedom. So Nishrayasatmaka Nikhila Dukkha Nivrutti. So Nikhila Dukkha Nivrutti is qualified by the word Nishrayasatmaka. Atmaka means in the form of direct knowledge of my true nature is the means for freedom, which is in the form of, or is the means for the removal of all dukkha, which is in the form of freedom. In simple words, the knowledge of my true nature is the means for freedom. And this freedom is in the form of removal of all dukkha. How the knowledge of my true nature becomes the means for removal of all dukkha? That is said here. Akhila Nartha Nidana Swarupadana Nivrutti Dwara. How the self-knowledge is the means for removal of dukkha? By this particular way. Dwara, by way of nivrutti, removal of the ignorance of one's true nature, which is the cause, nidana, of all undesirable. So self-knowledge becomes the means for freedom from bondage by removing the cause for bondage. This is a simple way of putting it. It is a very big sentence. Simple way is what? Self-knowledge is the means for freedom from bondage by removing the cause for bondage. And what is bondage? Akhilanartha, all undesirable. So, Swaswarupa Ajnanam is the cause for bondage, and the Swaswarupa Ajnanam is removed by the knowledge. Therefore, knowledge is the means for Dukkha Nivrutti, Samsara Nivrutti. This is a basic principle of Vedanta. Basic vision of Vedanta regarding moksha. This is an important statement. If this you have understood, your Purushartha Nishchaya is very clear. The bondage is due to ignorance. Ignorance can go by knowledge. Therefore, knowledge is the means for freedom. That much. Alright, that much करते करते साल हो जाता है. So, dukkha nivritti hetu bhavati. Okay, then further. Now he wants to say that by Swarupa Jnanam only dukkha nivritti happens. That is not the case. Because some people that much only work. Itna sana mehnat karenge, will work very hard for self knowledge, and that's how dukkha will go. कोई positive work ही नहीं है. So बोले हाँ ठीक है. Positive also will happen. स्वस्वरूपस्य एव सत्यज्ञानानन्तानन्द ब्रह्मरूपत्वात् स्वस्वरूपज्ञानेन ब्रह्मावाप्तिर्भवति. Swaswarupasya eva. One's true nature itself is Satya Jnananantananda Brahma Rupatvat. My true nature, one's true nature is in the form of Brahma, which is Satya, unnegatable, Jnanam, consciousness, Ananta, limitless, Ananda, happiness. So, my true nature is Brahma. And what type of Brahma? Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Anandam, Brahma. And therefore, Swaswarupa Jnanena Brahma Avaptir Bhavati. Therefore, by the knowledge of one's true nature, the attainment of Brahma takes place. Why is it so? Why by the knowledge of my true nature I attain Brahma? For that basic background hetu is this. My nature is Brahma, and because of ignorance I had disowned Brahma. Therefore, by knowledge there is as though attainment of Brahma. That is Brahma Vaptir Bhavati. Brahmacha Nitya Niratishaya Khandananda Rupam Dukkha Sambhinnam Iti Sarva Vedanta Pramana Siddham. And Brahman is Nitya Niratishaya Akhandananda Rupam. Brahman is of the nature of Nitya, permanent, timeless, Niratishaya, unsurpassable, indivisible Ananda. Brahman is of the nature of permanent, unsurpassable, indivisible Ananda, and Dukkha Sambinnam, Asambinnam, not mixed with Dukkha, not associated with Dukkha. Iti, in this manner, Sarva Vedanta Pramana Siddham. This is well established by all the Upanishads Pramana, by all the means of knowledge in the form of Vedanta, otherwise called Upanishad. Why this is clarified? Somebody said, Brahma Vapti Bhavati Tata Kim. So he said that Brahman is Ananda Swarupa. Ataha eva, therefore alone, Swaswarupa Sakshat Karena eva. By intimate appreciation, direct appreciation of one's true nature, Nitya Niratishaya Dukkha Sambhinna Swaswarupa Bhuta Brahmanandaha Vapyate. So by intimate or direct appreciation of one's true nature, the Brahmanandaha avapyate. The Ananda which is Brahma is attained. What type of Brahmananda? Nitya, which is permanent, Niratishaya, unsurpassable, Dukkha Sambhinnam, not associated with Dukkha at all. That type of Swaswarupa Bhuta, and which is in the form of one's true nature, that type of Brahmananda is attained. By direct knowledge of my true nature, Brahmananda, Ananda which is Brahman, is attained. And what type of Brahmananda? Nitya, Niratishaya, then Dukkha Sambindam and Swaswarupa Bhutam. Means it is not that I will attain Brahman and remain with Brahman for some time and come back. Swaswarupa Bhuta Brahmananda. That is the significance. I attain Brahmananda, I claim Brahmananda as my true nature which will never go. Swarupa of a thing never goes away from the thing. Heat never goes away from fire. Therefore, this Swaswarupa Bhuta Brahmananda avapyate by Swasakshat Swarupa Sakshat Karana. Evam, in this manner, Nikhila Dukkha Nivrutyupalakshita Swaswarupa Bhuta Khandananda Praptehe Sakshat Sadhanam Swarupa Jnanam Eva. This is the final Vivek, the last Viveka. After this also some Viveka, little bit is there, we will add. Evam, thus, Nikhila Dukkha Nivrutti Upalakshita Swaswarupa Bhuta Akhandananda Praptehe Sakshat Sadhanam. He makes always long compound. Sakshat Sadhanam is direct means. Direct means for what? Ananda Prapte. Choti si baat bas. Is direct means for the attainment of Ananda. Is Swaswarupa Jnanam eva. Direct means for the attainment of Ananda is the knowledge of one's true nature. Means if you know your true nature, you attain Ananda. But Swami, Ananda I can attain by going to dining hall also. No, but this Ananda is different. What type of Ananda? It is Akhandananda. Akhandananda means indivisible, without any gradation. And Swaswarupa Bhuta, it is in the form of one's own true nature. And it is Nikhila Dukkha Nivrutti Upalakshita. This Ananda is indicated by, characterized by, indicated by Nikhila Dukkha Nivrutti, the removal of all Dukkhas. Means this Ananda is not fraught with Dukkha. That is the idea conveyed. So, knowledge of my true nature is the direct means for indivisible Ananda, which is my true nature and which is indicated by the removal of all Dukkha. Means it is a Dukkha Rahita Ananda. Tasma, therefore, Swaswarupa Vichara eva Kartabhyaha. Therefore, the inquiry into one's true nature alone should be done. In between, we have to supply. See, what is the last stage was there? That Swarupa Jnanam is the means for Ananda Prapti, Moksha Prapti. And now we have to supply what? Swarupa Vicharena eva Swaswarupa Jnanam. We can add this much also. Guru Shastrabhyam Swarupa Vicharena, by inquiry into the true nature with the help of Guru and Shastra, alone Swarupa Dhanam Bhavati. Therefore, Swarupa Vichareva Kartavya. So one step we have to add. Otherwise, here also there is a place of this, what is called misconception, place of getting sidetracked. See, up to this person has come. What? I require Swarupa Dhanam for Moksha Prapti. And now person says, Swarupa Dhanam happens by deep Samadhi only. And last, he says called Arudha Patita. Means Everest 5 meters below he was and fell down. This fellow is in this Kanyakumari, no problem. But from that he went up to 5 meters just beyond, below this Everest and fell down. This much Vivek I did. And then he says, yes, Swarupa Jnanena eva moksha prapti. But Swarupa Jnanam happens only by the white heat of meditation. Then what? He falls down. Therefore, here the last step also, that Swarupa Jnanam is by the Swarupa Vichara with the help of the Guru and Shastra. And therefore, Swaswarupa Vichara eva kartavyaha. Shastra Shravanam Mananam Ityadi Kartavyam. Itham Yasya Vivekaha Jayate. For the person, Yasya, for whomsoever Itham, this type of Vivekaha, discriminative understanding is born, Saha Eva Jignasuhu. That person alone is Jignasuhu. That person alone is called Jignasu. And really speaking, this person is the Adhikari for Vichara Sagara. If you do like this, if you keep like this, then no student will come. Zero. Advaitam only will remain teacher. Therefore, what is that done? During the teaching, this all stages, one is helped to pass through. He is made to go through. Like a person goes to the agent and बोले visa चाहिए. But क्या document? कोई document नहीं. He will help you to get a document. So that's how the nowadays modern teachers have to do. कोई बात नहीं है. We'll get you documents. So similarly, we'll get you through this all stages. But really speaking, Granthakara is going to say that this Jignasu is the Adhikari for Vichara Sagara study. Alright. Then he talks about the Mukta Purusha, which we'll see more. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.